Unlike the rest of the lands coming to Universal's Epic Universe, we actually know a pretty solid amount about Super Nintendo World. That's because it's the only land that's already been built, although there's an expansion on the way. Super Nintendo World opened at Universal Studios Japan back in early 2021, and has received pretty rave reviews since that time. From the rides, to the theming, to even the food, it looks like this land is an extremely well-rounded experience. That experience will expand even further in 2024 when the new Donkey Kong expansion opens. As for here in America, a smaller Super Nintendo World will be opening in Universal Studios Hollywood next year, gutting the Yoshi Omnimover attraction. In 2025, however, Super Nintendo World will be making its way over to Orlando, with the brand new park Epic Universe. Let's take a look at what this land will have, from the current offerings at Universal Studios Japan to what's to come when the Donkey Kong expansion opens. This is the second in a 6-part series covering everything you need to know about Epic Universe before it opens in 2025. Feel free to watch these videos individually or in any order, but if you're interested, check out the playlist in the description, and subscribe to the channel to catch the next part when it drops. Also, any and all sources used in this video can be found in the description below. With all that out of the way, let's get into the video. Let's start with what we know so far by taking a tour of the current Super Nintendo World. As shown in the concept art for Epic Universe, you'll be entering this land through a classic Super Mario warp pipe. It doesn't seem incredibly themed by any means, but it's at the very least a fun and thematic transition. I was a bit worried it would become a pinch point for crowds, but it seems that similar to Diagon Alley, there's a separate tunnel designated for those exiting the land. That warp pipe leads to Peach's Castle, which is a nice little themed entrance. You have a few paintings hinting at Bowser Jr., who we'll get to later, but it's otherwise pretty empty. A cute little entrance plaza, but nothing compared to the view you get stepping outside of it. This land looks absolutely incredible. It's so colorful from corner to corner, and packed to the brim with movement. The coins atop Mount Beanpole, the enemies swaying to the beat of the music, and even the Yoshi Omnimover ride to your right all add to the immaculate theming throughout. I'm even more excited to see what it looks like in person, as I imagine the scale is hard to capture on camera. As a huge Nintendo fan, I'm heavily anticipating stepping into this land myself, and everything I've seen so far has made that anticipation skyrocket. One thing to note is how this land is split up between two separate levels. The upper level primarily consists of the Mario Kart attraction and Peach's Castle, while the lower level has the main restaurant, shop, and the Yoshi ride. Since you enter on the upper level of the land through Peach's Castle, I'm curious how Epic Universe will get guests up to that point. Will the path leading up to the warp pipe slant upwards as it seems to in Japan, or will the warp pipe get you up to that point? We'll just have to wait and see, but for this tour, let's start on the bottom level and work our way back up. First things first is this cute little snack booth called Yoshi's Snack Island. Based on this video alone, it doesn't seem like many people stop by this location, but considering it's right near the entrance to the soon-to-be Donkey Kong expansion, I think that'll likely change in the future. For now, this booth seems to sell popcorn and boba tea, which probably won't be the same for the American parks. Menus at theme parks differ from region to region, which also applies to the much bigger sit-down restaurant in the land, Kinopio's Cafe. Kinopio's Cafe, or Toad's Cafe as it will be known in the US, is this land's primary restaurant. You get in line right outside this cute Toad-themed house, and are greeted by Chef Toad himself as you enter. This is a cute little distraction while you wait, as are the various other screens throughout the line. There are also screens in the dining area, showing a day at the Mushroom Kingdom, which even has a small show that goes on every few minutes where a storm starts to brew. All of this theming seems to pair well with the amazing looking food. From a Mario-themed cheeseburger to a mushroom pizza bowl, all of the food not only looks incredibly themed, but also incredibly good. It's a huge step up from what theme park food used to be known as, and it's great to see Universal go all out on this menu. Now, as I said, not all of this food will make it over to the States, but if it's anything like this, I have high hopes for what Toad's Cafe may offer. Let's step out of the cafe back onto the main shop of the land, the 1UP Factory. This store features a wide array of Nintendo-themed merchandise, with two main designs present. I have to say I surprisingly like the 2D designs more, with a cutout aesthetic that reminds me of some of Disney's newer merchandise. The bright colors and simple designs really work for me. Otherwise, I like the rest of the merchandise, but I think it would be interesting if Nintendo tried something similar to their New York store. By that I mean selling games and amiibos and all sorts of other stuff. Maybe that's a bit unrealistic for a theme park, but it does make some sense in my opinion. The final thing on the bottom floor of this land is the Yoshi's Adventure attraction. This is an outdoor Omnimover ride meant to show you around the land, kinda like the People Mover at Walt Disney World's Tomorrowland. While this one is very well themed, I think the People Mover is much more successful at showing you around. This ride seems to just go around one corner of the land, and while the view is nice, I wish it was a bit longer. It's a very short ride, even if the indoor show scene is appreciated. There's also an interactive element, where you can hit a button on your restraint that matches the color of an egg you see on the ride. If you grab them all, you'll get some extra coins on your power-up band, which we'll get to a bit later. As a whole, this is a cute ride. It's well themed, gives you a nice view, and seems to have a pretty high capacity, which should help for the crowds in the area. Personally, I might go on this ride once or twice, but it pales in comparison to the other ride in this land. That other ride takes us to the upper level, into Bowser's Castle for Mario Kart Koopa's Challenge. In the United States, this will be known as Mario Kart Bowser's Challenge, but otherwise should be very similar. You'll enter through Bowser's Castle, which towers above the rest of the land. I love the huge metallic Bowser head, paired with the spikes on each of the towers. It's such an imposing building in an otherwise colorful land, and that aesthetic doesn't stop when you enter the castle. There's Bowser-themed banners throughout, and even a massive Bowser statue atop the stairs to the main queue. Speaking of, this queue is amazing. While it starts out a bit boring with some zigzagging in this garage area, it slowly gets more and more well themed. This library has so many touches throughout, from funny gags to game references. It then leads to this factory section, where bob-ombs are being created for use on the ride itself. This is also where you grab your AR headset, which is an integral part of the ride experience. Before you hop on your cart, there's a little pre-show explaining how everything works. To quickly recap, you're on Mario's team racing against Bowser's team. You can throw shells at enemies and turn the cart when you're prompted to. You then exit the pre-show and head into the ride proper. This queue looks amazing, and while the cutbacks at the beginning are a bit disappointing, I understand it considering the small footprint of this land. It was originally designed to fit in the Kids Zone area of Universal Studios after all. All of that leads into the ride itself, and there's a lot to talk about here. I think many, including myself, had some preconceptions going into this ride based on the marketing in the Mario Kart games. The main thing being the speed of this ride, or the lack thereof. This is a pretty slow-moving dark ride, which may be disappointing for those expecting something similar to the games. Not only that, but even with the small bits of interactivity at certain points, you never get the selection of items present in the games either. Just the shells. That, paired with the hard-to-capture AR effect, makes it easy for me to understand why some would be disappointed by this attraction. But as time goes on, I'm beginning to warm up to it. Yes, it's slow-moving, but that's so it can appeal to as many people as possible. Same with the item selection. Imagine having to teach someone who's never played Mario Kart what every single item does. It would also be pretty hard to implement considering what this ride is aiming for. And what this ride is aiming for is to be an attraction for the whole family. Nintendo appeals to everyone, so it only makes sense to have a ride that appeals to everyone as well. As for the AR, I think that's something that's just very difficult to capture in video. I won't know for sure until I try it, but I imagine this is a much more convincing effect in person. Even without the AR, I love the theming of this ride. There's so many cool physical set pieces, from the flurry of clouds to the incredible looking haunted mansion. You also have a Rainbow Road section at the end, taking advantage of projection mapping for a really convincing effect. As a whole, while it might not be quite what I wanted, I think this is a good ride, and will be much better in person. Luckily, Super Nintendo World should be getting a higher thrill attraction in the near future, but we'll get to that one in a little bit. Before we move on from the land as we know it today, I'd like to touch on the interactivity present throughout this land. Interactivity at theme parks seems essential to me, and I could make a whole separate video talking about the good and bad of the current implementations we've seen. And to be honest, I probably will. For now though, I think this is one of the best implementations of this concept we've seen yet. That starts when you grab the power-up band. This is an accessory not unlike the wands we've seen in the Wizarding World at Harry Potter, but at a much cheaper price. If I had to guess, they'll probably sell for around $30 or $40, which isn't cheap by any means, but it could be worse. This band unlocks a whole bunch of new opportunities around the park. Once you link it to the app, you can track how many coins you have, compete on the leaderboard, and collect stamps in a similar way to how achievements work in video games. You can also tap it on the two rides to earn additional points, which is a really nice touch. However, the most exciting thing for me has to be the set of 6 minigames this band unlocks in the Ultimate Key Challenge. This challenge takes place all throughout the park, with different interactive minigames featuring enemies from the Mario franchise. Some of these are screen-based, like the Bob-omb in the underground area. while others use physical theming, like the Koopa Troopa Challenge outdoors. While the screen-based ones are more involved, I do prefer the physical set pieces seen in the more basic challenges. The Piranha Plant minigame is probably my favorite, in which you work together with several other guests in order to stop the alarm clocks from waking up the sleeping giant. If you're successful in 3 of these 5 minigames, you'll unlock the 6th and final challenge, Bowser Jr.'s Shadow Showdown. This is a much more advanced and involved challenge, with a great looking queue and really fun gameplay, so I appreciate its addition to the park. Overall, I really love the interactivity the power-up band enables. While I worry about these minigames causing some crowds along the pathways, I don't really see any other downsides. This adds so much kinetic energy to a land already bursting with it, and really contributes to the idea that you're in a video game. I could gush about this all day, so again, I'll likely save that for another video. That leads us right back into the speculation. A Donkey Kong themed area will be opening at Universal Studios Japan in 2024 as an expansion to the already existing Super Nintendo world. This land won't be coming to Hollywood, however, due to space constraints. Epic Universe, on the other hand, should be opening both the Mario and Donkey Kong themed areas at the same time in 2025. We've already seen construction begin on the Donkey Kong Minecart roller coaster, but let's touch on some smaller stuff before we get into that. Even when it comes to smaller stuff, there doesn't seem to be a ton coming to this area. There's a small shop similar to the one we see in Tropical Freeze, and I'm sure there will be a small food stand park somewhere. Apart from that, this land should expand on the interactivity seen in the initial phase, with Donkey Kong stamps being found in the Super Nintendo World app. There are some rumors floating around that these interactive points may be using the animal buddies from the original trilogy of games, but I have my doubts about that. These games were developed by Rare, who is now owned by Microsoft, so Nintendo generally stays away from any characters they created. King K. Rool did make his way to Smash though, so anything is possible. The crown jewel of this land though will be the Donkey Kong themed Minecart roller coaster. Like with Mario Kart, I wouldn't expect anything too thrilling with this ride. I know the prospect of a roller coaster seems to suggest a high thrill, but I have a feeling this will be more on the tamer side. Somewhere above Woody Woodpecker's Nut House Coaster, but below Hagrid's Magical Creatures Motorbike Adventure, if that makes sense. I do think this is primarily because Universal wants to appeal to a large audience of people, but also because of the main gimmick of this attraction. The Boom Coaster, as it's been dubbed by Universal, will have the cart appear to jump from rail to rail, when in reality it's connected to a rail on the side. This should look amazing from the outside, but probably means the ride won't be able to make any advanced maneuvers. Which is perfectly fine, by the way. I'm just trying to put my own expectations in check, considering my love for roller coasters and the Donkey Kong video games. Apart from the ride itself, I love the exterior theming we can see around the land. Like with the Mario Kart ride, this should be a very well-themed attraction, and I'm excited to see what Universal does with it. Altogether, this ride should be fantastic, and it is easily one of my most anticipated. We'll have to wait for 2024 to see more, but I couldn't be more excited. That being said, I think Super Nintendo World is one of Universal's best creations. They've perfectly matched the aesthetic of the Super Mario franchise, with bright colors and movement throughout. The current ride offerings may be disappointing to some, but make a lot of sense considering the audience this park is aiming for. Other than that, the food and merchandise look great, with the interactivity adding even more to an already packed land. And with the Donkey Kong expansion coming soon, this land will be even more stacked. I'm so excited for this land to finally find its place in the Orlando parks, even if it's a long ways away from the Kid Zone plot that it was designed for. That's all for the second part of this series. Next time I'll be looking at the Universal Monsters area, returning to just pure speculation rather than analyzing something that already exists. I had a lot of fun with this video, and I hope you did too. If you enjoyed it, please be sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you all next time.